Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Monday. Can you actually get welcome to Monday? I don't know. I feel a little guilty saying welcome to Monday, but we made it through the weekend. We're ready for another productive and exciting work week. And, well, we've got a few things to tease, yeah? Anyway, welcome to Monday. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope we can have a fun conversation with each other this morning. We've got a couple of articles that I know a lot of people have sent to me, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. As you can see, since I know Mrs. Hoeg Law teased it on the internet earlier this week, we're working out some samples from the new store that is really completely a production of my wife that I could not do without. So I want to say thank you for that. And yeah, I think we're going to see a couple of hats that I'm going to wear this week. I know everybody's used to the gray. Nobody get overly panicked. The gray hat is still here. It didn't disintegrate. It didn't get lost. But that is a prototype from 6 years ago, if people don't know that. And so we can't actually move that around so easily. And so we've got some other hats that we are going to be showing off, hopefully, here. I don't know if I show off fashion apparel very well, but I do wear a lot of hats. And, of course, this is my wife's. This is my Hangout and Headlines mug. She always has a lot of great ideas for stuff to go in there. So these are just a few teasers for what that new store is going to hold as we get everything set up. But how is everybody doing this morning? What do you think of the hat? Tell Mrs. Hoeg Law how amazing she is doing, because she is absolutely instrumental to doing any of this, or else I would not have any updates to my store for about 10 years. And while I like the stuff that is currently in the store, it is not recently designed. So we've got a lot of cool stuff that's going to be in there, including the old stuff, but a lot of new stuff as well. So do tell Mrs. Hoeg Law what a great job she is doing, because it's a lot of work, and I can't thank her enough. So where is everybody calling in from? Morning from New York, New York. Love the new hat. I love the new hat too. I love all the new hats that I have seen so far. It's a lot of fun. We got a lot of commentary for Mrs. Hoeg Law. You're fabulous. She's wonderful. Hello. She's the best. Fantastic. Mrs. Hoeg Law, you're doing an awesome job. She really, really is. She is amazing. My top hat guess was wrong. I don't think I have a top hat. I have to look into that. I'm calling in from Mars today, says Secret McSquirrel. Well, hello, Mars. Fantastic. I think that's where Elon Musk wants to go. So, hey, he's a subject of this video. Actually, these two articles are tied together in concept. That's why I put them together. I'm not crazy. Love your work, Mrs. Hoeg Law. Morning from Toronto. Great way to start the week. Nice hat. Huntsville, Alabama. Good morning from Peach Park, Alabama. Is that close to Huntsville? I don't know. It's close in time here in the comments, but I don't know how close it is geographically. Love. New hat and mug, Mrs. Hoeg Law. It's all her. Absolutely. Marathon, Florida. Good morning, Marathon. St. John's, Newfoundland here. Happy Monday lunchtime from the UK. You've already done half a work day. You're way ahead of me. How amazing is that? You're always ahead of me. It's fun. Good morning from Chesterfield, Michigan. Visiting family. You guys are cute. Dynamic duo. She's cute. I'm just here. But she's fantastic. Evening from Perth, Australia. Hello from London, presumably London, England. We have a lot of Londons in various states here in the United States. We love that name. Love all the new merch. We've got more. Secret McSquirrel says my drugs are that good. Just so we're clear, she's in the hospital. But it's fantastic to have you here, Secret McSquirrel. Hello from Austria. Hashtag relationship goals. Yeah, anytime you can get a spouse to design and make a mug for your merch store, I highly recommend it. It's actually been a lot of fun doing it with her, and that's not something I would have expected when I started this channel. So it's been a good time. Good morning from Ohio. Watching from Roanoke, Virginia. Star emoji. First live for me. Hello, Chrissy Lee. Welcome to your first live. Happy face, kind of blushing emoji. That's awesome. Fantastic. We got show off that beautiful mug again, says the graphic designer here. This is my Hangouts and Headlines mug. I haven't been able to figure out how to not dim me until I look like I'm a vampire in the background. But yeah, we'll be showing off stuff throughout. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we're probably going to do a very short video tour of the new store before it goes live sometime soon. So if you like this stuff, let Mrs. Hoeg Law know it by hitting that like button. She'd love to see it. I know it would be awesome to show her how much we love her. Mrs. Hoeg Law, you are the backbone. That is the truth, 100%. Morning from Barbados. That's awesome. It's an exciting place to live. Morning from Dallas, Texas. Good morning from Oklahoma. We got Texas and Oklahoma right next to each other. Awesome stuff. I got tons of hearts in the chat, which I hope Mrs. Hoeg Law can see here. Then just Elon is weird, and there's no way around that. But does anyone really understand billionaires? It's hard to imagine being a billionaire, isn't it? Like, so much of our lives is feeding the family and keeping the lights on. And what does that look like when you don't have to worry about that? Don't know. But yeah, absolutely. Mrs. Hoeg Law says, thank you to everyone. Well-deserved, honey. It's awesome. South of France, Australia. Turns out I have to vacation in Melbourne to be able to catch Hoeg Live. I'm from California. You can come around the horn. Then you can catch that live time. Yeah, no, I always feel bad for my California friends and my West Coast friends because they're always like, that time is ridiculous, Hoeg. And I say, yeah, I know. Hey, from New Orleans. Good afternoon from the Netherlands, The Hague. Nice. Smiley face emoji. Mrs. Hoeg is amazing. Hearts with stars emoji. You two are such great people. Hearts in your eyes emoji. Lots of love from Holland. Hello, Holland. Thank you so much for the nice comment. Orlando, Florida. Lots of hearts. Lots of hearts. Hearts. Awesome stuff, guys. I know I really appreciate that. Mrs. Hoeg Law, these are awesome products. If you didn't follow her on Twitter, do. She's at Mrs. Hoeg Law. She's also showing off a few of the stickers, I think, that we've got coming, and some other things as we work out such awesome and exciting development as making sure we pay all of our taxes properly. And doing that kind of thing behind the scenes, getting those wires lined up, and how actually to take an order for something and make it into a product. So she's working on all that on the back end. She's way beyond me in that knowledge base at this point in time. Could not do it without her. Evgeny Groisman with a super chat. First time in a while to catch you live. Love from Israel. Thank you, Israel. Thank you for the super chat. That is awesome. We love a morning on Monday. We love talking about all this stuff. Uncivil Law is with us. Yes, I saw him in the chat. He also messaged me. We're just doing this one alone. Mondays might be kind of alone days as I get more into the rhythm. Don't know. Generally speaking, it's good to see everybody here. We've got Uncivil Laws in the chat. We might have some other people join us in the chat because I didn't invite anybody this morning. So we might have them pop in. Welcome to everybody. Mrs. Hoeg Law is telling people in the chat we've got those plans for the store. We've got additions coming. We got love from Germany, Belgium, Florida, Los Angeles, Minnesota, all those exciting places. It's good to see everybody this morning. I love just checking in for a few minutes at the top of the episode just to hang out with everyone. So what did everybody do this weekend? What fun did everybody have? I know that I really enjoyed a TV show this weekend that I really wasn't expecting to enjoy, which I know a lot of you know about, called The Sandman, which I think is Netflix's #1 show. It seems like anything that they release is #1 for at least a moment. And then it has to be like #1 for a while in order for them to not cancel it. So, help me get that show not canceled by going and checking it out yourself. Otherwise, that was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with the family this weekend. Had a lot of downtime, thankfully. We've been streaming a lot here on the Hoeg Law YouTube channel. We've been making a lot of videos. We've been doing a lot of law. We've been doing a lot of stuff for the law firm logistically. And it's been a month. But for those of you that didn't know, my wife basically ordered me to not do anything on Saturday. And I think that was a good call. So I did get to rest a little bit, more. Yesterday I was on the Bitcast for just south of 3 hours, I think, if you saw me talking yesterday morning and afternoon. But everybody needs to get that mojo back, get a little bit of rest and relaxation, get a little bit of that energy back. And I think we did that. We'll see. But it's been a lot of fun just hanging out with everybody this weekend. So what else is everybody else doing? Let's see. We got the city is replacing fiber optic cables, so we still do not have the internet. Are you watching me on a phone or something like that? That is sad. I always get worried when the internet isn't working, but I do a lot of work that requires some bandwidth, so it's never a good day for that to happen. Caffeine Junkie says yes. Finished the 10 episodes of Sandman. Respect. Yeah, I finished it last night. I do like Twitter capsule reviews. I do like one paragraph where I talk about these things. I might post-mortem Sandman. I don't know. I don't want to commit to extra videos right this second. But I have a lot of thoughts about it. I didn't read the comics back in like the 80s or the early 90s. And so I have never seen this story before, and it's enormously wildly creative, which I really like to see. But I don't know whether I will postmortem it or not. If I do, it'll be here. You know where to find it. Sky is a neighborhood with super chat. Hoeg, you need to give us a spin and best blue steel so we can fully appreciate the hat. No spinning around on this channel. That's one of the early reviews of the channel. We're not spinning around. We're not a otherwise fashion related channel. Maybe I'll get one of those, like plinths on like a Lazy Susan, and we'll put a hat down and we'll rotate the hat. But no, I don't think there's anything on the back of this one in particular. There is another one that I'll be showing off later that has a kind of cool back feature, but we'll see if I can show that in some reasonable way. But no spins. I don't have a dynamic camera, so it's this area or none at all. But I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see here. I dislike Sandman. Not a Neil Gaiman fan. Yeah, he has a very specific way of kind of concepting out his stories. You have to like essentially anthropomorphized concepts. He does that a lot. But I will tell you this, I like the Sandman way more than I like the adaptation of American Gods. And American Gods was the first thing I ever read from Neil Gaiman. I have never read the Sandman. Really not that big of a comics guy. And so I really, really liked what Netflix did with the show. But I also said in that review, one, it's an anthology kind of series. So you have misses and hits while you go through it. And two, it's a story about stories and concepts more than it's a story about specific characters. And so that can sometimes rub people the wrong way. But I loved it. But I will accept that reasonable minds can differ. And so I watched Sandman, enjoyed that. I also watched Prey, the new entry in the Predator series. It was a good day for things that I liked on Friday when those all released. I fell asleep to the Sandman. So here's the funny thing. So did I a couple of times. I went back and watched these things. It has long sequences of melodic instrumentation. And I almost think that it leans on putting you to sleep in various of those sections. And that's kind of an interesting meta concept. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but it does tend to have this kind of up and down music for long periods of time. And it can lull you a little bit if you're watching that. We got others. The Sandman is so good. So, reasonable minds can differ on this. Yes, please, not a fan of the female Constantine. But it slowly sunk in. Yeah, having seen the Keanu Reeves movie, I did wonder whether or not that was originally John, what I usually call Constantine, but I'm told is Constantine in this particular TV show. And I did wonder if that was supposed to be John, and then that got switched for Joanna. We're not going to go into too many spoilers here, but I had a number of questions about some of the changes that might have been made from the comics back in the 1980s. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. Don't know much about like what these characters actually are. Acromat Chris, the designer here, says you can't claim to not be a fashion channel when your wife is producing all this hot merch. Yeah, well, she is. And maybe we'll do that store tour and we'll spin gifts around or something like that. But Monday at 7:45 in the morning is a little bit too early for me to be spinning around and showing off headwear. So Civil Law says, spins or we riot. Well, I mean, that's always an option. If you can get that together in the chat, that's all on you. Secret McScore loved American Gods. The adaptation, it just didn't work for me. I mean, I'd read that book. Maybe if you read the book or the comic, like the adaptations don't work for you or something. But I love the concept. I've always loved the concept. He's got this kind of weird way of looking at the world and creating these stories. But no, I just didn't like that adaptation for whatever reason. Again, reasonable minds can differ. Let's see here. What else we got? It's just so dark and slow, but it's nice to sleep to it. Yeah, that guy's voice is amazing. So yeah, he could read some sleepy time YouTube videos or whatever, and I think it will work on you. I don't know if it's slow. It takes its time, maybe, but it's interesting. I really loved it. So it's interesting to see some more negativity here, but I don't mind it. Gaiman loves writing stories about stories. Sandman is a story about stories. I mean, it is at a fundamental level. I love Sandman, the comics, blocking up my ears against spoilers for the show. My understanding is it's pretty faithful, so I don't know if there's a lot to be worried about. I loved Prey. Prey was really good. Seemingly everything that is coming out with the label Prey in modern times has really worked. Prey, one of the best video games of the last decade. Prey, very, very good movie in the Predator series. So that's rare. They've done a lot of stupid things with Predator. What else we got here? Listening to Hoeg wax poetic. I guess I'm going to have to watch Sandman after all. Yeah, I think it's a good show. I give it a 9 out of 10. Like I said, every episode seemingly feels like it could be anything. And so some are better than others, but I think it does a really good job. Hoeg Law, have you checked out Good Omens? I think I watched like the first 10 minutes of that. It's like an Amazon show, right? I might go back to it because I'm kind of into that heightened concept show right now coming off of Sandman. So we'll see. But I haven't watched it. Yes, Prey was questionable, says Tara. Not sure I liked it. It's interesting. I really did like it. But that's okay. It's okay. Reasonable minds can differ. Loved Sandman and Neil Gaiman. Hearts, hearts, hearts. We just lost where we were. That happens. Sounds like I need to look up the Sandman soundtrack and at least check that out, if not the show. I really like it. It's very melodic and then sometimes operatic. They scored it very heavily, which I tend to like. And so that worked out for me this weekend. Sweetie Sweets, hi ho, greetings from Jacksonville, Florida. First ever super chat, thumbs up emoji. Thank you, Sweetie Sweets. That is awesome. First ever super chat. That is an honor. Thank you so much for the support, and I really appreciate it. And hello, Jacksonville, Florida. That is great. I've only seen the trailers for Sandman. Looking forward to watching it. I was thinking about getting HBO Max, but not sure after reading the articles about Discovery. Just not sure. Well, you could do a trial, I think. I don't know if HBO Max has one. But I always recommend, popping in for a month on these kinds of things. I like to rotate around the various services because you can only watch so much with your eyes on any given month. And you can rotate around to what is really the best. Sardan says Johanna Constantine was in the Sandman comics. Okay. They also had to scrap DC-owned characters. So Sandman's a DC comic book. So in the adaptation, they didn't have the rights to some of the other crossover stuff. That would make sense. So yeah, no, if she's a character, that's cool. Neil Gaiman has a Tumblr account. Haven't heard that in a while, and answers a lot of questions over there. He's a total joy to follow. That's super cool. What else is going on? I watched the second season of The Outlaws on Amazon Prime, and a few days ago finished Paper Girls. Good family show, Mr. and Mrs. Hoeg. Hearts in your eyes emoji. Thank you for the recommendation. I have not ever heard of that. That's based on a comic too, right? I heard of that last week. But we'll see on that. I think Paul Tassi at Forbes didn't like it, but I don't agree with him very often. So that doesn't mean anything. I love the book Coraline, but not a huge fan of the movie. Neil is a very creative storyteller. Did he write Coraline? That's interesting. He's got kind of a dark sensibility. My partner and I just started Paper Girls this weekend. Pretty good. All right. That's the second recommendation for that. PE loved American Gods, so you don't have to take my word for it. Just because I didn't like an adaptation doesn't mean that everybody didn't. A lot of people did. So tired. I watched Sandman until past midnight. Lost track of time. Can't wait to finish it. Yeah, I think it's a good season. Very, very imaginative. Good Omens is fantastic. I recommend for that. Read the book for Good Omens too. My real name comes from Good Omens. It's fun. It's wild. Love Sandman. Love Hoeg. Could be the Sandman. You've never seen me in the same room with the Sandman. We don't know. That guy's voice is amazing, though. Good Omens is good. Did I hear the rumor of a Johanna Constantine spinoff. I love Jenna Coleman. I'm such a Whovian. I started watching Sandman for her. It's interesting watching Sandman and the way it bounces around different stories and timelines and things. It actually does give you a Doctor Who vibe to some extent, even though there isn't that same element of time travel. It's that I don't know what's going to happen in the next episode, and it'll probably be something that is completely unexpected from the last one that has that same kind of vibe. Kiwi Girl 75 agreed. Highly recommend Good Omens. Well, it sounds like I have the next thing to watch on my list. That's David Tennant, isn't it? Jacob Novik, hi from Sweden. Hello, Sweden. 1 week before the FTC's decision, feeling excited but also stressed. Really hope it gets approved since it's annoying to follow. I don't want to ruin your vibe here, but the FTC can just decide to delay its decision. So it might make decisions soon, and it might not. But if it doesn't, if it tries to push things longer, you might start to see various parties start grumbling publicly. So we'll see how that goes. It's pronounced Gaiman. It's how he says it. Fair enough. AI is a diphthong to me from my old Latin teacher, so I just tend to read it that way. But I can pronounce it any way the individual likes. I have never met Neil Gaiman, and so yeah, I appreciate the heads up on trying to pronounce these things correctly. Only thing I love more than Sandman is Hoeg Law. That is very nice. Baby Meatball. Love the name. I appreciate it. So we're having a Sandman conversation this morning. It's good stuff. Let's see here. What else? A big yes on Paper Girls. All right. Love Constantine. That would be awesome. Good Omens is very good. I recommend the book first, says Secret McSquirrel. We'll see. I don't know. Neil Gaiman wrote an episode of Doctor Who also. I believe he's been a big fan all of his life. Sandman has a lot of Doctor Who, a very unknowable protagonist kind of wandering through other people's stories. And it's very neat. Let's see here. My partner and I have gone back and are watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe in chronological order. In universe, not release date. So starting with, do you start with the Eternals then? Because of like the first scene in the Eternals? Do you start with Captain America because it says he's the first Avenger? I'm curious about this. What is the chronologically correct first movie to watch in the MCU? Love the American Gods book. I've read the book. Watched the series while on a plane and forgot it had some awkward scenes in the flight. You know, it's always funny, right? When you're watching something on those airplane monitors and like you look over at whatever and somebody's watching, who knows? Just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily want to be watching with your parents in the room. And it's just on a plane flight. You're like, all right, choices were made. That's good stuff. And I know that these things generally get otherwise edited or controlled for that environment, but it's still, you still see some things on a flight that you maybe weren't expecting. Gaiman wrote the Graveyard book, awesome book that I taught in middle school English. I choose to ignore the Eternals movie, so that wouldn't be first for Charles LePage here. Captain America is the answer to some folks. I've been listening in. So far, everything that you guys and girls say was good by this guy. I have not liked. Sounds like I'm skipping Sandman. Hey, certain authors have a specific flavor, and Neil Gaiman's flavor is strong. It is this kind of dark fantasy and, like I said, concept-based storytelling that is not going to be to everybody's vibe. So absolutely, I can see if you don't like what other things he has written, Sandman isn't going to change that. Sandman is exactly that. So if you don't like that, yeah, stay away. Absolutely. Reasonable minds may differ. Shirt? Oh yeah, yeah, of course, absolutely. MCU starts with Hulk. When is Hulk's first scene? I don't think that's true. So if it's chronological, Captain America definitely happens before Hulk. And if it's chronological enough that you're bringing in the Eternals, that happens before everything, at least at the start. So I don't know. And if you're going with release date, it's Iron Man. Iron Man comes out before Hulk. But very interesting. Hoeg Law, Captain America is first. Captain America is the first movie chronologically right now. Eternals is after Endgame. But Eternals has scenes that are first. Eternals has scenes like in caveman days. So, I mean, it just depends on how much you're using that. Because it's got to be like Captain America and then like Captain Marvel, like in the 90s? I'm very interested in this. I have to go release order for the MCU. Sure, that makes sense. Captain America, if you want to go timeline-wise, they're just not giving the Eternals the credit for those early scenes. They put them where the main story takes place, which makes sense. I also watched Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies, was in a mood and waiting for a new show. Did you watch those all on the same day? That's like a full day of movie watching. Yeah, I want to watch Lord of the Rings. I actually want to watch Lord of the Rings with my daughter very soon because she has forgotten when I tried to show it to her earlier. Only thing I liked from Neil Gaiman was Stardust. Stardust, very cool. Love Stardust. On a flight, yikes. You can see some stuff on a flight. What else here? Gaiman's collections of short stories are also altogether amazing and a more accessible entry point into his work. You got to get into the mind space. Only thing I really enjoyed this year, movie and shows-wise, was Uncharted. Interesting. Heard that many people didn't watch it because of who's playing Sully. Mark Wahlberg? No. Mark Wahlberg, I think, is okay. Although I probably would have cast him as Nathan Drake. Tom Holland. So I've played all the games. I like Uncharted as a series. I don't love it outside of maybe Uncharted 2. And it just was never a great fit for me. I think it's an okay movie, but it's not Uncharted to me, again. And that's because I have a great deal of understanding of what was being adapted here. Sandman might be, for someone that reads the comics, not a great adaptation of the comics. I don't know. I don't have that foundational information. I just love it as a show. So you might be the same way with Uncharted. I find Gaiman's protagonists do a lot of observing and don't actually do a whole lot. Yep. Yeah. It's the Doctor Who model, right? You wander through these various other people's stories. Maybe you do a little something from time to time. And that is what the Sandman is. So if you don't like that, you're going to have the same complaint if you come to that. Let's see here. Uncharted was amazing. Love Tom Holland, but Maverick was the best movie of the year. Maverick is my favorite of the popcorn movies, definitely. And so, yeah. All right. Well, it's just about 8 o'clock this morning. We've got a half-hour hangouts, and let's talk about some articles that'll make people a little bit agitated, probably. Is what it is. So first, we're going to talk about Elon Musk, right? Because that's everybody's favorite tech billionaire, and he's been in it with Twitter. Now, I have not, unfortunately, been giving you all Virtual Legality episodes that talk about these specific filings yet. It's on my list. I plan to do it, but they're just so long. Elon Musk filed 130 pages, I think, and Twitter filed a big document back at him. And I want to pluck out the importance there and not just read 250 pages of documents to you over the course of 14 hours, because I don't know that would be exciting for anybody. But one of the things I wanted to talk about here, because we're in headlines, that's what the purpose of this show is to talk about reporting on these things. And I wanted to tie this up with what we have seen on the Johnny Depp side. And we're going to talk about this Rolling Stone article as well. But we've talked in a couple of episodes this past week about reporting on things, and specifically about reporting on legal documents. So these are two legal document fights. So Elon Musk and Twitter are suing each other because Elon Musk agreed to buy Twitter and then has since said he is terminating the deal because Twitter lied about how many fake users they have in their monetized column, right? And so you don't have to believe Elon Musk on that. You don't have to believe Twitter on their response, but it's a legal fight. They're hurling documents at each other. Very similarly, in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case, these two parties hurled documents at each other before the trial began. And what recently happened is that the pretrial motion documents got released by the court, and then the publishing of those was paid for by a group of people organized by Andrea Burkhart, who you've seen me streaming with in the past. And those documents were released, and then everybody has an opinion on those things. But what's important about both of these stories, and we're going to look at both, is that they are both describing situations in which motivated, zealous advocates for one side or the other are putting forth documents to the court and to the other side. And that means that they are presenting, sometimes hyperbolically, exactly what they think their position, their argument, and other aspects of their case are. And then we go through and the court evaluates them, or the jury evaluates them in the case of Depp v. Heard. And that's the process that always happens. But these journalists are reporting on these documents that are designed to be zealous advocacy as if what they were saying was sacrosanct and quote unquote truth. And that's not the way that this process works. And if you've ever been in a fight with anybody, you know that the way this process works is that you hurl invective at the other side and you try to win your points. Surely me and Mrs. Hoeg have never done that, of course. But you try to win your points. And that doesn't mean that there isn't any truth. It's probably a kernel of truth at minimum in whatever you're hurling. And it doesn't mean that whatever you just said or described in the fashion that you chose to describe it in that context is what we would call objective truth either. So in this first article, what we've got is Twitter sues Elon Musk, says you can't walk away. We need your $44 billion. You have to buy the company. He returns volley and says, you lied about what you told me about the company, and you are preventing me from getting the information to check those lies. And so I'm walking away. And they respond by saying, no, you're making up what our obligations are, and you're refusing our information, and you're being a dummy. And so we are still going to make you purchase the company. And that those are the three sequences of documents that we have right now. And the Gizmodo of the world here uses the language of your favorite YouTube drama channel to describe this multi-billion-dollar legal fight with some of the most expensive corporate law firms on earth. Twitter obliterates Elon Musk's excuses for trying to kill $44 billion deal in blistering court filing. Twitter called Musk's claims factually inaccurate, legally insufficient, and commercially irrelevant. It's an interesting subheading because this almost certainly is like the boilerplate that's already in their template response document in order to file these kinds of things. This is I use these sometimes too in the descriptions because it's kind of strongish language, but this is what you say when you're fighting a legal claim on a corporate side of things always, right? They're wrong, they don't make sense legally, and they don't matter to the deal. And that's always the case if you're fighting in a lawsuit about a broken deal. This is never not going to be included, but they obliterated him. Okay, well, so they made hopefully strong arguments in their favor on these kinds of things, but this is part of the process. And unless you reported that Elon obliterated Twitter with his countersuit, and they didn't, spoiler alert, this is the wrong way to report on actual adults having a legal fight. And I know Elon Musk doesn't act like an adult all the time, and far be it for me to defend him. He rubs me the wrong way in certain important respects, but we do have to get the reporting right, right? Back in April, Elon Musk made a $44 billion offer to buy Twitter before he decided in July that he wanted to cancel the deal. Can I what? I put up a chat. Oh, okay. All right. We don't need Uncharted up there. Sorry, Shireen. I appreciate it. Yes, I have technical producing happening now to move things around. So I appreciate it, Mrs. Hoeg Law. Thank you. All right. But that's not how it works when you already made a legally binding commitment. And a new court filing from Twitter pokes holes after hole in every complaint the Tesla CEO has made about the purchase agreement. So let's talk about the functionality here, right? So this is an answer document to a countersuit and answer document. And then it goes through and explains why everything the other party said was wrong. That's why they get longer. And these ones are so enormous in size. That's the job. Right? Like the goal is to poke hole after hole in everything that the other party has said. And then the court or the jury or the judge evaluates whether or not that was successful in kind of responding to those kinds of things. Twitter sued Musk last month, explaining that he was still on the hook to fork over all that cash. Now, this is an interesting use of explaining, right? So in language, when we use the word explaining, that is suggestive of whatever is being talked about. That is the truth. That is the veracity of the situation. They didn't argue that he was still on the hook for all that cash, says this author. They explained that he was still on the hook for all that cash. And so you see right at the top here, as if you needed it from the titling, right, that Twitter is in the right, Elon Musk is in the wrong. And so we're going to evaluate that in this article as if it were already a fait accompli. It's a done deal. Musk countersued and submitted explanations for why he didn't want the social media company anymore, and Twitter has responded to those claims in a court filing in Delaware, unsealed on Thursday. Twitter didn't pull any punches in the 127-page filing, walking right up to the line of calling Musk an idiotic liar without actually using those words. They actually pretty much did use those words in the complaint, but they were damn close. The counterclaims are a made-forward litigation tale that is contradicted by the evidence and common sense. The company called his complaints factually inaccurate, legally insufficient, and commercially irrelevant. Again, they pulled the boilerplate language. There are much better ways to actually establish that Twitter believes Musk is a liar. They said it a number of times in their complaint using legal language, but this is not that. Musk invents representations Twitter never made and then tries to wield selectively the extensive confidential data Twitter provided him to conjure a breach of those purported representations. Yet Musk simultaneously and incoherently asserts that Twitter breached the merger agreement by stonewalling his information requests. The legal beatdown continued from there, eviscerating Musk's claims about the number of bots on Twitter and the number of active users on the platform, the two big issues the billionaire takes with the deal. Now, if words on a page could constitute a beatdown of some kind or an evisceration of claims of factual matters, well, then the legal system would look quite different indeed. Now, I have no doubt that Twitter's documentation here is very angry, very motivated, and probably hyperbolic in the same way that Elon Musk's is probably the same going against Twitter. But you can't take a complaint document or an answer document or any of these documents and suggest that they are entirely evocative of the truth of the matter asserted, to use some hearsay kind of concepts. And so when you get this kind of reporting, it's a problem because people are going to go and read this and assume that this is the truth, right? They're going to assume that Twitter doing a purely normal answer process and might win the case and have the better course of it is somehow a legal beatdown or eviscerating Musk and he's hiding in the corner somewhere. This is exactly what is expected at this stage of the proceedings. It's exactly what is expected by any company that has a well-resourced law firm, which they do. And it's not at all unusual for Twitter to be arguing exactly as they have been, that they gave him a ton of information. He didn't use that information and he's making up what he's actually concerned about as a pretext, which is the word that you're looking for, author. If you're looking to establish when Twitter is calling Elon Musk a liar, you're looking for pretext and pretextual. That's legal for liar, liar who lies. And then saying that that pretext is just that, a pretext for trying to walk away and save himself $44 billion. That doesn't make it an evisceration, however, because we don't know what the facts of or circumstances of the situation actually are. So they're just shouting at each other about, yes, we gave you the information. No, you didn't give me the information. Yes, you could have told whether or not this was a problem with the representation. No, I couldn't. And that's not a beatdown or an evisceration until you start getting into the facts, until you start getting to the emails, until you start getting into what it was that these parties were actually doing. And then you really screw up things for your readers. Whatever excuses Musk can come up with, he signed an agreement to buy the company at a given price and waived any due diligence. This is factually incorrect. And Twitter keeps asserting it in their lawsuits as well, because what was skipped was a due diligence period before you signed the merger agreement. That does not, however, mean that Twitter can go off and do whatever it likes between signing and closing, or that it can have lied to the individual in question that has promised to pay it $44 billion in order to get that deal done. Say, for instance, that Twitter had said, yes, we will sell you for $44 billion, and then sold all of the assets the next day to a third party. Elon Musk would not be required to purchase that company in the shell form that it then had. Similarly, if we all knew for a fact that Twitter had lied about its entire operation, the whole thing is bots, it doesn't actually exist, then when Elon Musk went to pay and said, well, actually, this whole thing doesn't exist, we know intuitively, but also contractually, that he would not have to purchase that company. We are instead in a middle area, and some people believe that Elon Musk is lying about these things. Twitter has presented a strong case that he has essentially been lying about things and slowballing things in a way that is untoward and that maybe the Delaware Court of Chancery will otherwise unwind. Twitter might well win this case, although seeing the court actually force a $44 billion deal is hard to believe. And yet, even if Twitter does win, it would be based on the facts of the matter, not based on the fact that Elon Musk has no right to due diligence at all. Next, this author says Twitter could have thousands of bodies buried underneath its headquarters in San Francisco, And that still wouldn't change the fact that Musk decided to only have substantive questions after he signed on the dotted line. He said he'd buy Twitter as is and without refunds. No, he 100% did not. The reason the document is 90 pages long is because there are dozens of pages of what we call representations and warranties, promises that Twitter makes about itself, how it operates, how it makes money, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the opposite of an as-is purchase. As is exactly as it sounds. I will take it however it is. And then you exchange the money. And if it turns out to be a used car that's a lemon, you buy it and you say, damn, screwed that one up. And you go on with your life. Elon Musk did not put $44 billion on the line for a potential lemon social media company and say, damn, it didn't work out. There are pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of promises that Twitter makes. Twitter believes that those promises were kept, and that's their right to do so. Elon Musk believes that they weren't, or is at least presenting that to the court. But in no respect is either side arguing that if Twitter was murdering people by the thousands and burying them under their headquarters, that probably wouldn't be an issue with their "we comply with the law" promise, that representation that says, oh yeah, we've been operating in compliance with the law. Murdering thousands of people and burying them in your headquarters. Look, I'm not familiar with San Francisco or California law on that particular topic, but I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that would be a problem with their representations and warranties. So this is flatly wrong and motivated, right? We've used the phrase motivated in this space a number of times because this is someone that clearly believes that Twitter is in the right, Elon Musk is in the wrong, and is taking even Twitter's stupidest arguments, like he just has to go through with the deal, even though there's an informational covenant, even though there are representations and warranties that have to be true as of the closing that wouldn't be true if X or Y or Z happened before that closing, and essentially saying that Twitter is in the right there, even when it doesn't make any sense. So we need some judgment here. And at bare minimum, we need to keep ourselves, if we're writing an article like this, from writing it as if one party's statement of truth is all that matters and establishes what that truth value actually is. Then he goes on to take a number of screenshots from Twitter's document, again, just kind of discounting the notion that this is one motivated party, arguing on its own behalf, and says it obliterates Elon Musk. So that's what we see here. And again, I want people to understand Twitter has a decent case here. And it'll be interesting to see it go forward. I also want to thank Lucky for gifting 5 memberships just now. Again, I can't bring those up on screen, Lucky. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that support. But when we're talking about these articles, it's really important to me that you try to get your readership the best understanding of the situation possible. And this basically does the opposite of that. Similarly, when we look at the Johnny Depp side of things, we have the same kind of problems we saw last week with the NBC News article, we saw with the tweets from Kat Tenbarge, and it is this notion that what everybody was expecting from the pre-trial motion documents, which include motion documents from both sides, the Depp team and the Heard team, would only ever be beneficial to what these various outlets want to frame as the people that paid for this, their Lord and Savior, Johnny Depp. And that just flatly isn't the case, right? It's a false premise because primarily what was known was that these documents would go both directions because they are exactly what we just saw with respect to the Twitter document. These are documents from either side that were put forth before the court, before trial began, and they argue on behalf of their client. So Team Depp is going to argue on behalf of their client for reasons X, Y, and Z. And for the most part, the stuff that they're going to be arguing about is likely going to be not terribly useful to understanding the facts of the situation between Depp and Heard, which is why the court kicked them out. Now, you don't have to agree with every decision that the court made on these kinds of things, but for the most part, overall, these things are going to be inconsequential to actually understanding what happened in this particular relationship. Similarly, on Heard's side, she and her team are going to argue for all sorts of introduction of things that the court ultimately determined weren't terribly useful, but that are potentially bad looking for Johnny Depp and his side of the equation. So it's basically what was expected when those things happen if you go and you look at these documents. And yet the NBC Newses of the world and the Rolling Stones of the world go out there and say things like, Johnny Depp stands, which I can't actually believe is in a headline of an actually respected publication of some kind, stands being fans in this particular instance, rushed to fork over cash for unsealed court docs. Did it backfire? Now, outside of the fact that you actually have no evidence whatsoever of the fact that who was funding Andrea Burkhart and getting these documents published were Johnny Depp fans over anybody else, the fact of the matter is that at the end of the trial, for the most part, a lot of folks had decided that Johnny Depp was in the right at the end of the case. So just kind of law of big numbers, maybe you're overall right, even though you don't have any evidence of it. Fans of the actor, again, doubling down on that, crowdsourced thousands of dollars to see unsealed court documents that contained even more allegations and embarrassing claims against the former couple. Of course it would. Those are what are in these documents, and it was known that that's what would be in these documents. As Amber Heard and Johnny Depp both prepare to appeal the verdict in their mudslinging defamation trial. It's a funny way of calling a defamation trial, right? Because mudslinging is at the heart of the issue in the first place. A newly unsealed document dump reignited the frenzy over the highly publicized trial. And this leads to an article about that document dump. And, you know, who needs periods? Periods are for losers. The mayhem around the 6-week trial, which Depp specifically requested to be televised, was nearly unprecedented, even when taking into account that people would naturally be interested in two high-profile actors airing out their dirty laundry. The court actually agreed with it being televised, but yes, Depp's side wanted it to be televised, Heard's side did not. Depp had emerged the winner in the court of public opinion even before the verdict came down, with fans stationing themselves outside the Virginia courthouse in hopes of getting a wave from the Pirates of the Caribbean actor. But 2 months after the trial's conclusion, Depp fans and curious minds are still eager to consume anything related to the case. So here, we have to give the author credit, right? I'll grant Depp fans and curious minds. I would argue potentially Heard fans as well in that group of curious minds wanted to get this out. And we also have to point out that, as Amber Heard said, when you write an article, you're not necessarily in charge of the headline. So this headline and subheadline are ridiculous. That's where the first kind of blush of issue comes out when you read this article. But for this author, Cheyenne Roundtree, if she didn't write that headline and she puts this sentence in, I think that's pretty accurate. Depp fans, sure. Curious minds, sure. Probably would add Heard fans. People that are interested in the trial in general went and purchased this. So much so that last weekend they helped raise more than $10,000 in a matter of hours to fund the $3,300 cost of recently unsealed trial documents. While an initial analysis of the document dump, more than 6,600 pages, doesn't seem to do Depp any favors, 4 legal experts tell Rolling Stone that what people are seeing are all the explosive allegations and potentially embarrassing claims that Depp's lawyers successfully kept out of the trial. Now, this goes too far, right? You'll see these legal experts are actually far more circumspect than this summary of what they have to say actually is. And this leads to an interesting kind of issue that folks have with reading articles and authors have with writing them. It's why I always highlight when we bounce between quoted statements and unquoted statements, because in any article, you're going to have some summarizing of what the individual in question is reporting on. Here, what they are saying is that these people, these 4 lawyers, see explosive allegations and potentially embarrassing claims that Depp's lawyers successfully kept out of the trial. Now, a reasoned look at this particular kind of concept would be something along the lines of that each side's lawyers successfully kept out of the trial, or that argued for inclusion. You could frame it in either way, but there's all sorts of stuff everywhere in these documents, from emails to motions and everything in between. And this is already kind of framing things as if this is specifically bad for Johnny Depp, even though one of their quoted experts will say it's not specifically bad for any party. And so you got this summary, and I want people to remember that, because while we'll see some of these quotes and we'll see how Rolling Stone gets to what order they put them in, how they interpret them, etc., you should keep in mind that when these summaries happen, they might not actually be reflective of what the underlying quote is, which we will see writ large with a couple of these experts. So first, they start with their strongest, right? This is the standing for the proposition that this hurt Johnny Depp. Absolutely, it was worse for Johnny. Brett Ward, a New York family attorney, says Johnny Depp's team won some key pretrial legal rulings overall because he had better rulings during the pretrial portion of the case. The stuff that he kept out hurts him more. The totality of the material now looks worse for him. Now, that thesis, I think, is acceptable, right? You're saying his lawyers were better. He won more of these motions to keep things out. So the preponderance of things in this particular document dump are the bad things Johnny Depp wants to keep out versus the bad things Amber Heard wants to keep out. And yet half of the reporting on this is essentially just statements that Amber Heard's team makes about what Johnny Depp wants to do to her with respect to photos and dancing history and everything else that isn't reflected in what Johnny Depp's team was trying to introduce in trial at all. That said, this overall concept is fine. Hey, Johnny Depp had better lawyers. Better lawyers kept more things out. If you release all of these motions, that's going to hurt Johnny Depp more than Amber Heard. I just don't know that I actually see it. And then the reason this was flagged for me, the reason that we are discussing it primarily here as something of an overlap is that we get our friend Emily D. Baker quoted. I think it would have been naive for anybody to think all these motions were only going to have flattering things for Johnny Depp and unflattering things for Amber Heard, says Emily. I always expected it to be both sides slinging mud at one another because that's what pretrial motions are. That is exactly correct. Emily D. Baker's quote here is exactly what, if you had asked me before this dump happened, Rick, what do you think is in there? What do you think people are going to find? Is it going to be more Johnny Depp in favor, more Amber Heard in favor? I would have said it's going to be both. It's going to be both sides trying to get in all sorts of stuff, whether it's car accidents or medical prescriptions that we know were going around the internet with respect to Johnny Depp. It's going to be all sorts of things that either side might have wanted to introduce against the other. It's Whitney Heard's testimony. I think it's Henriquez is her married name. It's all these other things that we heard little bits and bobs about during the court session, especially when the jury wasn't in the room. It's Stephen Deuter's text, which we heard about from Heard's team in the courtroom with the jury not present. It's all of this stuff. And I would have expected it to go both ways. Emily D. Baker is not taking a stance on, oh, this kills Johnny Depp. Regardless of what this says here, this is not a negative concept for what is in these documents, just an expert's acknowledgement of what should be in these documents. But that doesn't prevent the internet from going ham on this kind of stuff, right? So we have our new favorite Cat 10 Barge Twitter account recommended for us all to follow, K4MIL1AA, or Camilla to you and I. And she goes out with a tweet that says essentially, not Emily D. Baker turning against him, right? And this is not a reporter. This is not a headline. But I still think that following social media on this kind of stuff is useful because we can get a feel for how this stuff is intended to be sent out to the world at large, right? So here we have Camilla going out, not Emily D. Baker turning against him, quoting a bunch of other headlines, one of which we will talk about in just a minute. And this is exactly what she does on this particular account, going up to have other people quote all this stuff and retweeting, I can't even laugh, at Deppies losing one of their grifters, as if this quote from Emily D. Baker means absolutely anything about the merits or the substance. She retweets, not the main Deptford wife, etc., etc. This is what is out there. Now, interestingly enough, right, especially when there are folks that are accusing Emily D. Baker or others in the space of being the ones that are sowing hatred or potentially being bots or that kind of thing. You go and you look at this particular Twitter profile, it is nothing but this. It is nothing but attacking people that are otherwise evaluating the case or otherwise looking at things at a hopefully neutral and objective point of view. Now, that's this person's prerogative. But we have to be honest about how these conversations happen and how things get misread. There's nothing here on the merits whatsoever, and yet that's exactly what is happening when you look at these things in their entirety. Continuing, we have another Dan Rosansky. People have their minds made up about the two of them after the trial. Based on what I've seen so far, I don't know that anything really moves the needle in terms of changing public perception. So that's 3 of the 4 legal experts, and you have one saying worse for Johnny, one saying, of course, there's bad stuff about both parties, and one saying it doesn't move the needle at all. And this is the sentence Rolling Stone decided to summarize these positions as. So again, folks, use caution when you don't see the quotation marks because the author is editorializing and they can play fast and loose with what that editorializing says. Burkhart said in a statement provided to Rolling Stone that she donated $7,000 in leftover funds to the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and Art of Elysium. She did. That was the big press release we talked about last week. Judge Penny, as Karate, ordered all previously sealed documents be unsealed last month. In this matter, both litigants sued one another, thereby opening themselves up to the public forum of a jury trial. Court records are public information. Importantly, Rolling Stone does not make the mistake that a number of these other outlets do right here, which is to suggest that this group paid to have them unsealed. They were unsealed by the court. All this group did was pay for the exorbitant prices charged by the Fairfax court office for copies of those materials. The trove of papers mostly contains pretrial discovery motions, which each side duked it out over what would be permitted into the trial. We've got Marilyn Manson, but beyond his alleged drug use with Manson, Heard's team had tried to pull in more of the man's texts. Depp's team had wanted to keep all mention of Manson out of the case. They lost that, by the way, especially if you followed the trial. Referring to the serious claims of physical and sexual abuse against the musician, claiming Heard was trying to smear Mr. Depp under a guilty by association theory. You then have references to his career at Disney. His former agent testified in a deposition that a Disney executive had called her up when Depp allegedly appeared on TV drunk and stoned and asked her what the hell was wrong with your client. That's obvious hearsay, and so was not introduced into trial. Jacobs ultimately testified about Depp's conduct, as did his ex-girlfriend Ellen Barkin, who told the court about Depp's alleged drug use during their relationship and mostly about a bottle being tossed in a hotel room. But apparently there was a Quaalude story that didn't make it in, probably is more prejudicial than probative to this particular issue, since it wasn't otherwise abusive, at least not on its face. The filings show that Depp's team had tried to get the judge to sign off on using nude photos of Heard and highlighting her past as an exotic dancer. They don't actually show that. They show Heard's team trying to preemptively get the court to say that that wasn't allowed. And there's documents that suggest that Depp's team didn't want to introduce those things unless they needed to in rebuttal for some reason. That was unclear. And then you have what is called a clever legal maneuvering, which I think is pretty funny here. But let's talk about it. Unsealing information regarding Depp's alleged medications was surprising to Baker, who had been following the trial closely on her YouTube channel, as Judge Azcarate had kept under seal both parties' personal information, including their medical history. Los Angeles attorney Ryan Baker, who I think the first Baker reference there is Emily D. Baker. This is another Baker being introduced, but thanks for the help, Rolling Stone. Says Depp's team appeared to have the upper hand due to clever legal maneuvering, such as Depp's team fighting hard in pretrial motions against having him undergo a psychiatric evaluation, which Heard had done. Now, here's the description of clever legal maneuvering, which you've probably already heard from us on the YouTube lawyers feed. Amber Heard made emotional distress or post-traumatic stress an issue in the case. Because she made that an issue, she had to submit to a psychiatric evaluation. That's pretty damning. Then you were waiting for the other person to get up and say something about Johnny Depp, but Johnny Depp never got evaluated because he never had to submit, because he didn't make emotional distress or post-traumatic stress any kind of issue in the case. So the clever legal maneuvering here, such as it is that he didn't charge Amber Heard with any kind of damages resulting from his emotional or psychiatric state. And so there doesn't need to be a psychological examination of him. I don't know if that's clever legal maneuvering as much as it's just the facts of the matter when you don't assert that you have post-traumatic stress or that you have any of these emotional issues that the other side has attested to. So, hey, reasonable minds can differ as to whether that's particularly clever, but certainly that's the reason why he didn't otherwise have to appear in that particular situation. During trial, the court heard how the actress allegedly edited images of her injuries. We know this was a discovery issue because they didn't provide them, but claims of Depp doing the same thing never gained the same traction because they weren't allowed by the court. They didn't have the same kind of evidentiary backing. Texts between Heard and Depp's former assistant, Stephen Deuters, about Depp allegedly kicking Heard weren't permitted into court. That's actually a pretty close question that the court answered. That was a determination of whether or not Stephen Deuters was an agent of Johnny Depp at that point in time, acting at his behest. Otherwise, it's hearsay because he wasn't around to otherwise attest to his testimony. Baker offers that Heard's team had some big wins by keeping details of more damaging testimonies and declarations out of the court, including from Jennifer Howell and Heard's sister Whitney, noting those details were tightly and narrowly constrained. Which Baker? I don't know. I think that's Emily because that's who they refer to as Baker here, but is it Ryan Baker? I have no idea. But yeah, absolutely. Heard's team kept Jennifer Howell and Whitney's testimony out of some of this stuff, that letter between them, all of those particular instances that people really wanted to see in the trial. And that was a win in and of themselves. Both parties have until September 5th to file their appeals. And that's the end of the article. So outside of the headline and outside of a wildly generous editorialization of what the quotes that they actually collected said, this is one of the fairer articles on this particular topic, and that's saying something. The last thing I want to leave you with in terms of just kind of an update on this, and frankly, it's because I get a quote in, which is just a very important quote. It is necessary to make the whole article go is an article about the fact that CUNY, and I can't forget, I think it's the City University of New York. I think I got that right. Had a tough weekend of headlines here. So this is Fox News, and I never expected this to be an article at all when I was tweeting about it this weekend. NYC's public university system deletes profile of Johnny Depp lawyer after backlash. And what happened here, if you're familiar with how universities work or colleges work, is that they get an alumni, and that alumni participates in something big, right? And your job, if you're public relations, if you are otherwise working for the school, is to make sure that people know that your school is a place where people can get things done, that you should pay their tuition because you're going to have a great life if you come to our school. And so what they did was they found that, hey, one of the attorneys in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case was actually a CUNY graduate. And so they put up a profile. It says the City University of New York scrubbed a profile of a graduate who was the youngest attorney to work on Johnny Depp's legal team in his defamation case. The daughter of two immigrants from the Dominican Republic graduated from CUNY's Hunter College in 2015 and went on to earn a law degree from Fordham University. This individual was featured in an August 3rd profile published in the student-run newsletter CUNYverse under the headline, "This CUNY grad was the youngest lawyer to serve on Johnny Depp's legal team," and gave some quotes. But by Thursday, the article had been replaced with a peculiar mea culpa. "We understand the strong negative emotions this article elicited and apologize for publishing the item. We have removed it from our CUNYverse blog." And so Casey Johnson, who's a fairly well-followed person, I believe, is a professor at CUNY, says not a good look, to put it mildly. And they pulled this off. And then, for whatever reason, I don't know why this was used in the article, we have attorney Richard Hoeg of the Hoeg Law firm replied, "That's rather unbelievable." That's the high-level legal analysis you can expect from me on Twitter, folks. But yeah, I would love the reasoning. Okay, what is this adding to the article? Because when I get a series of DMs on like Friday night, it's like, "Oh, you're quoted in this Fox News article." I go, "Uh-oh, what is what's that about?" And as it turns out, that's my quote is, "That's rather unbelievable." I think I also said, "Thanks for flagging," like thanks for pointing this out. And this whole story is ridiculous, right? Because this is still a graduate doing important stuff for the side of a case that won a unanimous verdict on an issue of public importance and interest. And absolutely, you run a profile of that if you're CUNY, and they pull it down because their graduate was on the quote unquote wrong side. But you can see how this filtered out because you have tweets like this. This is Amy Hisson. "If a CUNY alumnus worked on the legal defense team of Harvey Weinstein, convicted serial rapist, or Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted sex trafficker, would CUNY celebrate it in an email blast calling the case hot? This is a gross mistake and an embarrassing moment for CUNY." And I believe this is a professor, and this kind of thing gets spun around. It gets spun around social media, and I believe it was probably one of the driving forces for having them pulled. But look at this comparison, right? Johnny Depp won a unanimous verdict by a Virginia jury. You don't have to agree with them, but at some point, your hyperbole has to find its end, right? You'd have two people convicted of very, very bad things here, and you equate that here for a lawyer doing her job in the trial court setting. If you are in that trial court setting and nothing has been determined yet, we believe fervently in America in the right of each side to have competent counsel. And this person performed that task, is an alumni of your school, and is the youngest to be on the particular team. This is a tremendous accomplishment for a young lawyer, and you get the hell kicked out of you for the side of the matter you chose to represent, which, by the way, you didn't choose to represent as a first or second year associate at the law firm that hands you your job and you go and you do it. And you get absolutely pilloried and compared with defending Harvey Weinstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Are you kidding me right now? And this is what people are facing online. So when you read those articles about how the bots are attacking whomever or they're degrading one another, just remember that there is a whole lot of this ad hominem attacking and otherwise tearing down on the internet in general. And it's leading to stories that I don't think anybody can feel good about, and which Rick Hoeg of Hoeg Law finds rather unbelievable. It's just a hilarious quote. It's anyway. So I just wanted to comment on that as well, because I think it's the direction all of this is heading. And so it's just the way these things happen. But yeah, those are the articles I wanted to talk to you about today. It's misreporting on what legal process actually is. It's people overreacting to things that really justifiably are things that people should be proud of, right? That you are the youngest lawyer on this major case. You're a graduate of the school. Every university would pull a profile of that kind of person. And it just didn't happen. It got pulled down by another angry professor, seemingly, at CUNY. And this is where we are left off. So let's talk about some of the super chats that came in. Leave me your comments, questions at Hoeg Laws or whatever about this topic. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys have to say. I find the CUNY pull down to just be sad. That individual didn't do anything wrong. That individual took a job at a law firm, did her job, seemingly did it well, got a profile done, got an interview with her alma mater. What a great day for that person. And then just has the internet attack it. And that's just absurd. So let's talk about a few super chats. Uncivil law. No one knows what it's like to be the bad man, to be the sad man behind blue eyes. And no one knows what it's like to be hated, to be faded, to telling only lies. I assume that's a poem or a song, Kurt. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. I don't know the song. I'm sorry. Britt Cormier, factually inaccurate, legally insufficient, and commercially irrelevant is the same as a 4-year-old calling someone a poopy head or having a coupon that says not good with any other offers. It is the boilerplate. Like, you can't think of a deal or contract type case that wouldn't have that kind of concept in it. It's not wrong to necessarily quote some strong language. It's why it's included in these various documents, but it's not making the case that you think it is. And I'm positive that somewhere in that document, Twitter calls it pretextual or whatnot. And that's your magic word for liar. Britt Cormier, I agree. All this pretrial stuff was mudslinging. I could not tell you what was in there because I have not seen it, but I can tell you what is not in there, evidence and truth. Yeah, it's prior to the crucible of truth. It's prior to actually going through our judicial process, but it is part of the process itself, and it's the court doing its job. You want to see the court make its money, which it doesn't really make. It is in that aspect of the paperwork. Oh, this is in, this is out. You have to do this, you have to do that. And when you're getting in front of the jury, for the most part, you saw Judge Escarate, yeah, she does objections and things like that, but for the most part, she's observing. And all of the work done by the court is in that pre-trial stage, and in some cases in the post-trial stage as well. CG, younger journalists don't seem to understand the difference between news and opinion. Yeah, that Gizmodo article is labeled as news. The Depp Heard trial shows that the Washington Post and New York Times aren't immune either. Sad situation and getting worse. Yeah, well, and we talk about opinions here and we talk about bad logic, but certainly I try to give a greater breadth of concept out to opinions, right? That opinions can be whatever they want. You're entitled to your opinion. I can comment on how it's illogical for you to have arrived at that conclusion or what have you, but you're entitled to assert it. When you report on news and you report it, Twitter eviscerates Elon Musk in his bed as he sleeps, that's not great reporting, and I don't think it does people a lot of good. Evgeny Groisman, when the cancelers can't cancel their actual target, they apparently just cancel whoever they can around them just to feel powerful still or something. I don't know why anybody would react very strongly to that CUNY profile. That was actually pulled. You can check out that thread from Casey Johnson, and it's like standard fluff stuff. How did you get into law school? What would you advise our CUNY students in order to prepare themselves for a life in law? You know, like that kind of thing. It's like absolutely nothing. Innocuous, and it's just like, well, we can't believe that you aggrandized this person who worked on this case. It's like, okay, you know, she won, right? You know that in that particular instance, Johnny Depp was defamed according to a unanimous jury in Virginia. The fact that you disagree with that is fine, but keep that to yourself when it comes to actually another person, realizing that they did a good job on a case that was their job to do. Anyway, that kind of thing really does make me upset because I was a young lawyer once. It's been a while, but had the University of Michigan asked to do a profile on me for whatever reason, which they didn't. That would have been fun, and that would have been cool. And I hate to see that taken away from somebody. So what else here? We got some Hoeg Laws here, which I can't really find through the StreamYard. So I'm just going to answer them off of the top here because that's where they pop up the best. So what do we got here? At Hoeg Law, can we get that quote on a short, pretty please, asks B with a blushing happy face emoji? I don't know which quote that you mean. Reasonable minds can differ is definitely going on a shirt. But let's see if we can figure out what other quote you think would be good, because once we get this up and running, we can probably be a little bit more flexible and a little bit quicker to get new stuff up into that store. Will Hoeg Law fall into a honey trap? Get Rikeda or Joe to write them a response letter? I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to fall into any traps of late. We'll see. We just need Richard Hoeg's Believe It or Not. Hoeg Law, hey, what's your opinion on slimes? Fantasy creatures. Slimes are adorable, especially in Dragon Quest. Little blue guys. I love slimes. I think we might even have a slime pillow somewhere. So, yeah, thank you. Love that. People are telling me who Kurt is quoting with that song. Makes sense. And he says it's from The Who. Okay, The Who. All right. The That's Rather Unbelievable one. Oh, you want the Fox News quote? Just says, that's rather, should I have a picture of myself just looking like, that's rather unbelievable? Like, it wasn't a terribly emotional tweet from me. It wasn't like, huh. It was more along those lines. We have Britt here. Hoeg, as we all know, there's no difference between someone convicted of a felony and someone that has won a defamation case. Yes, obviously the same. That is why they made that comparison, LOL. It's crazy, right? Like, and you're a professor at a school. You are an educated person, and it just bothers you so much. And I don't fundamentally understand it. Sibling Creature, do you think they might put it back up if they got enough bad press for taking it down? Rolling on the floor, laughing emoji. No. I think at some point you actually have to just commit to one of the sides. And I think you're all in enough at this point on that question that you don't want to just flip-flop again. You've already flip-flopped, right? You put it up. You didn't think it was a problem because you're a sane person working in that public relations office. Then you get all this crap. You pull it down. You have like a really tortured apology, right, about this thing. And I don't know that we actually got to see it in full. Let's see if we can. Fox just quoted it a little bit. I don't know that there's more here. Trying to pull it up right now. Let's see if we can get this up. If we actually look at what they wrote here, it is, we appreciate everyone who shared their concerns about an article in our newsletter featuring a recent CUNY graduate who worked on Johnny Depp's legal team. We understand the strong negative emotions this article elicited and apologize for publishing the item. We removed it from our CUNYverse blog. The article was not meant to convey support for Mr. Depp, implicitly or otherwise, or to call into question any allegations that were made by Amber Heard. Domestic violence is a serious issue in our society, and we regret any pain this article may have caused. The jury verdict doesn't matter to a whole swath of people, and that is interesting in and of itself. But yes, to actually have a university with an alum working on a case that won that case, and to then pull it down and say, look, we aren't calling into question any of the allegations that a court, that a jury found were worth $10 million in compensatory damages, is an amazing stance for a university to take based on public pressure. And I can't really get over it. It's an unfortunate state of affairs that we find ourselves in with this kind of stuff. Thanks for the question. Cool slime creature on the Orville. Oh, there's like a little slime there. It's like a gelatinous cube type guy on there. What else we got here? Shouldn't a law university be impartial? CUNY's not a law university. CUNY was the undergraduate school for this individual. They literally teach their students to do their job and then castigate them for doing a good job. This was not their student in that capacity. She went to their college, and then she went into the law school at Fordham. I agree, though. Overall, a university system, you don't need to be a law school to say, hey, how does our system work? It's adversarial. Each side deserves competent counsel. And if you are giving that competent counsel and you ultimately lose and you're defending a bad person, then you have made that system work, that you have contributed your time, resources, and energy in order to make sure that the system itself is doing what it's supposed to do. You're an important part of that cog, even when you lose. And people are missing that. This has long been an issue, but it's even been a greater issue in the social media era of how could you defend that person? It's like, well, because they're entitled to a defense. And if the state can make its case, if the other side can make its case, then it shouldn't be a problem that this system will work. But they're entitled to that defense. I'm going to give them that defense and, trust in the process essentially here. And that's not happening. How can you defend them? Well, that's because that's the job. And that's what we have decided this system is going to be. Anyway, so, all right. I think that's it for today. It's 8:45 in the morning here on the Eastern Coast, Michigan, well known for its coastal sunsets and whatnot, especially going to the east. It's a hell of a morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for the kind words. For our new mugs, or at least one of the new mugs. It has a Virtual Legality on the back. I'll have to take my word for it. And the new hats and everything else. We're going to have more announcements, more fun to share with you. Watch this space. Watch my Twitter. There are some big things coming up this weekend. If you want to be excited about that, we're going to get that announcement very, very soon. I'll probably reference it tomorrow. Otherwise, thank you so much to everybody. Enjoyed hanging out with you all. Have a fantastic Monday. And I will see you tomorrow in Hangouts, or potentially earlier in Virtual Legality proper. Have a great one, everybody.